So you can pull this up and follow along if you'd like, or you can watch on my screen. Either way is fine. So today we're going to talk about how can we identify if a relationship is healthy or if it's unhealthy, essentially. So what makes a relationship healthy versus maybe not? And what are some ways we can resolve conflict, which is very hard to do for a lot of people, including myself. So these are some components of what would be considered a toxic relationship. So a toxic friend or partner might put you down. They may gossip about you or about others a lot, and maybe it bothers you. You ask them to stop and they continue. They may put your friends down, family down. In toxic relationships, the person might apologize but not be very sincere about it. They might make you feel nervous or unsettled and not in a healthy, good way, like when you first start dating someone, or you first meet a friend. They might compare you to other people or put themselves front and center. So their needs are always first and your needs fall to the wayside. A toxic friend or partner might also be someone who tries to change who you are. So how do toxic relationships and friendships affect us? So it's important to know that if someone's in your life and they are causing or they are embodying some of these toxic traits from this first slide, it can lead to loneliness, you feeling lonely even while you're in the relationship or friendship. It can increase stress. You might feel like you're not supported in your life or your goals. Maybe your self-confidence is affected or your self-esteem. You might start blaming yourself for things, even things that are not your fault or beyond your control. You may feel off balance or like something's missing or wrong. And then your other relationships could suffer with other friends or family members. So this is why toxic relationships can be very harmful. On the opposite side of things, what are some elements of a healthy relationship or friendship? So a solid friend or partner is someone you can trust. They communicate honestly with you about their needs and wants. They're patient with you. They are able to I think I spelled that wrong. Empathize? No, I think it's right. Empathize means they can start to understand where you're coming from and place themselves in your shoes. They're interested in you. It's not all about them. They're flexible with plans, so they're understanding if you occasionally have to cancel your plans or reschedule. They appreciate you for the things you do for them and who you are. They respect you. They're willing to talk through issues without resorting to violence or yelling. And they respect your boundaries. So these are all elements of healthy relationships and friendships. And why is it important to have healthy friendships and relationships? They provide a sense of comfort, a sense of happiness. They can prevent loneliness, and it's just human nature to have connection, even if that's more one-on-one. It can boost your joy, happiness. We talked about that already. Your stress levels on the opposite side lower if you're in a healthy relationship or friendship because you feel supported. They encourage healthy habits and lifestyles, keeping you accountable. They can change our outlook on life for the better. And they encourage us to achieve our goals versus someone who says, oh, you won't be able to do that. There's someone who helps us set goals and achieve. And then through healthy relationships and friendships, we actually have a higher self-esteem and a higher self-confidence. So that's why they're important. So ineffective ways of resolving conflict in relationships. If you are in a toxic relationship or you have a toxic friend, or maybe you just have a friend who resorts to a behavior that is toxic and is working on it, this is a list of things they may do. Now, I'm not saying if you have a friend who does some of this stuff that you automatically cut them from your life. We all have boundaries. Some of us maybe let some people cross those boundaries, or it's difficult to keep them from hurting us. So that's why we want to find effective ways of resolving conflict as much as we can. And then eventually that person may be someone that doesn't try to change their toxic behavior, that isn't interested in becoming a better person. And it may be someone that we need to cut off from our life in the long run. So that's important to know too. So here are some ways that are ineffective ways of resolving conflict inside of a relationship that is healthy even. So avoiding conflict altogether is not healthy or effective. Yelling at each other, becoming violent, giving an ultimatum. So saying you have to do this or this, unless I'm going to break up with you, or unless I'm never going to talk to you again, or I'm going to damage your property, etc. Mind reading is when you assume that someone's thinking something and they're not. Blaming someone else, overgeneralizing, like you never do this for me, so you don't care at all about me. That can be very ineffective versus saying what you need. Becoming defensive, so not taking criticism well and kind of reacting really harshly. Discounting other people's feelings is ineffective. So being like, sorry that you feel that way, that can be very discounting of other people's feelings versus saying, it seems you're upset, let's talk through it and come to a resolution. Refusing to listen to someone and only saying your side of the story, or if they only say their side of the story and don't hear you, that may be someone who is toxic potentially. And it doesn't mean people can't work on those things. And it doesn't mean people don't change. Some people do not, though. So it's important to recognize what's a healthy relationship versus what is not serving me anymore. So what are some good ways of resolving conflict and healthy ways to help the relationship flourish? Take time for yourself, especially if you're upset or feeling a really heavy emotion. Feel okay with setting boundaries, especially if you've been through something in your life that was really hard. You can communicate with your partner or friend about that, especially if you trust them. And starting to set that boundary, and hopefully they can respect that. Practice conversations ahead of time. So some people have a hard time communicating in the heat of the moment. So writing things down, planning out the important key points of your conversation. Be direct in what you want so it's not confusing for the other person. You can be assertive without being aggressive. And think carefully before getting back in touch. So if you have a relationship that's been broken and there are some components that have been toxic and you've disconnected, think carefully, is this someone I want to invite back into my life? Do I really think they've changed? What strategies are they implementing to be a better parent, sister, brother, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, etc., child? Opening up to others. Counselors are very helpful. Family counselors, a trusted friend or peer can be helpful. Self-care, taking time for yourself to replenish and nourish. Attending therapy, we talked about that already. And then understanding your partner's love language. And you guys are actually, if we get time today, going to have a chance to take the 5 love languages quiz. which you can take a singles quiz or a couples quiz, and they're pretty similar. But everybody has a love language that they like to be loved in. And if your partner or your friends can understand the way that you receive love, they can know how to provide it or how to give that love language to you. And vice versa, right? Maybe your partner or someone in your family takes that quiz and you know how to love them. Because we all give and receive love in different ways. What is assertive communication? So I'm pretty sure we all know what aggressive communication is. Maybe you throw stuff or you yell or get violent. Assertive is very different. Assertive is presenting facts, stick to the facts, lose the judgment, use I messages, which we're going to be talking about tomorrow or the next day, and listing out what was the behavior that the person did, what happened because of it, and how is it making you feel. So I'm going to teach you guys over the course of the next couple of days how to use something called an I feel statement, where we can say, I feel afraid when you pound on the door when you come over. So it's a feeling and a fact. I feel that way because I come from a history where I was in an abusive relationship, or I had an abusive family. I need you to knock a little quieter next time. That is assertive, but it's not aggressive. And it's not passive aggressive, where we're being like, could you really try not to do that? Like, it's okay for most people, but for me, it's not okay because of this, this, and this. If you use too many words, people stop listening in communication. So I'll teach you how to use less words to get to the point. So what are you guys going to work on today? We're not going to work on writing I statements. We're going to work on that tomorrow. There's quite a bit on here, and I know our time's just a tad short, but there is a building and maintaining Google Docs. I'd like you to work on that. And a lot of the answers can be found in the presentation I just went over. So if you need to go back to it, you can do that. There is a journal. If you don't get time to do that, I would love for you to start with the quiz on the 5 love languages and go through and find out what your love language is, even if you're not in a relationship. It can be helpful for friendships, future relationships, family. It helps you understand yourself better. Like, for instance, if I get criticized, sometimes is a trigger for me because in my childhood, I didn't receive a lot of praise or celebration verbally. So for me, my love language is actually words of affirmation. My husband didn't always get birthday parties or gifts growing up. So for him, his love language is actually gifts. A lot of times our love language is what we didn't get as a child. So understanding our love language can help us also understand why certain things trigger us. So if you can work on the Google Doc and maybe start on the quiz, and if you have to finish some of this tomorrow, that's all right. There is a My Love Languages reflection you can do after you work on the quiz. And if you're watching this video replay, depending on the term, you may get time to do the journal and the Teachers Pay Teachers, and you'll just want to check with me based on the day. Stop our recording here, and if you have questions after the video watching, please let me know.